tell me a little bit about life growing up that you remember
My
as a
life growing
kid,
up?
as your life growing up. Yeah.
Um, well, my first recollection is being in the apartment above the liquor store that, that my dad had. And I remember that when the, the beer delivery people would come and they had those conveyor things with the rollers on them, and I would sit on the boxes, the cases, and slide down into the truck. And my mom did not like that. That got stopped, but I had a good time. Maybe 10 trips that I got to make on it. And I remember one of the times in the liquor store, it flooded downstairs. And we were actually kind of swimming down there. Uh, and when you came down the stairs from the apartment, there was a landing, and then you went into the liquor store, and Dad had a big, oversized chair there. And going in there and flopping in the chair, you had to be quiet. But the other thing is, Dad would give me the feather dusters and all the big, heavy wine bottles on the bottom thing. I mean, I must have been like 3 or 4 that dusting those things. And then when we moved to the big house up on the hill, we just thought we had moved into a mansion, you know. But my biggest thing growing up is I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be playing ball, one way or the other. If it be down at the bottom of the hill in that park there, where we'd all get together and play 500 if we didn't have enough. But I always wanted to be playing baseball. Baseball was always my thing. I would listen to the games on my little transistor radio, my little white transistor radio, and I could get them when they were playing in St. Louis. That, don't know how, but I could get them better than I did when they were in Milwaukee. I did a lot more with John than I did with Kathy. Kathy was either babysitting for people she was, you know, you just never thought of her as a happy child. Me on the other hand, I could be an instigator. But and John was, I could dare him to do anything and he would do it. That I remember doing. He had an early morning paper route, and it involved that we had to go down to the liquor store that my dad owned, and John had to do something there. I can't remember what, but then we'd also deliver to the laundromat that was on the way. Delivered a stack of papers there, and John knew how to jimmy a soda out of the machine there. And bless me, Father, for I have seen my Catholic days. But it was a case where when the street lights came on, that's when you had to go in. That I just saw that on one of the apps, and Children's of the 50s, but kids nowadays don't have that freedom to play like we had. That street lights, and you better get in there. Or at least check in.
Yeah.
So.
What was Christmas like at your house?
Christmas. Well, we had to be in bed early because I think Dad had the Christmas presents down at the store most of the time. Except I do remember one year Kathy found all the places where my mom had hid things, and believe it or not, she opened up her gifts and redid it. And of course we couldn't go out there until Mom and Dad had gotten up, but both for Easter and for Christmas, you know, John couldn't see from his room, but we could kind of sneak around and kind of see what we had, but, you know, we couldn't come out of the rooms until Mom and Dad got their coffee and sat down, and unlike our family tradition, we all just kind of grabbed a present and gave it to whomever, and we opened everything up all at once, and I just remember the one Christmas that when we were in the apartment, I had wanted this ballerina doll, and Santa Claus, who was Daddy Carl Weeks, that said that I would get it, and I didn't. And I went through the liquor store, through the basement, everywhere, and did not get my doll. The following year we were in the house and came out, and there was my ballerina doll, not wrapped, a big box. I mean, the thing stood really tall, and Kathy had, I think, like Sleeping Beauty, some, that big doll, and I was thrilled. And then I remember I was in college, and I always loved St. Bernard's, and one of the customers of my dad had this St. Bernard, and for Christmas I had seen a big oversized St. Bernard dog, and I said that's what I wanted for Christmas. And we'd all opened up our presents and everything, and my dad came out of the bedroom and he was carrying this big St. Bernard, and I said, "Oh, Cindy, look what you got!" And Dad says, "Cindy, nothing," and throws it at me. so I got my St. Bernard. But knowing now what I know about St. Bernards and their slobbering, I guess there are dry mouth St. Bernards, but then there are slobbering ones. I wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
So like I said, we got up early. It was the one time my dad couldn't go to church because he had the store. But it's the one time that I remember that my mom would actually go to church with us. That otherwise we got rides with Kopecki's to church. That Christmas Eve, because John was a altar boy, that he and I that would walk to church for the midnight mass. And the one time it was snowing pretty hard. Of course, John went in and changed his clothes and everything. Well, I'm in the back, and back then everything that you wore was wool and mohair. I stunk like the sheep had come home. I couldn't stand myself. I stood in the back of the church. That was not fun. But Christmas, for the most part, was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. As you were now thinking, kind of your teenage years, what were some of the favorite, big loves, favorite things, places to go?
Well, I was always baseball, and the kids at school called me Eddie Matthews. Patty was my best friend in grade school, and she dubbed Eddie as her thing. But in high school, I could be Eddie. So I was always Eddie Matthews. That the group of us on Fridays would go to Sunset Boulevard for Saturdays, Sunset Boulevard bowling alley in Waukesha. That we would have to wait to get our bowling alleys because there was an early league, so we would play pool. I think it was like 3 guys and 3 girls, so we would play pool while we were waiting, and that was a regular thing. And then we would have dances but like I said, John was a freshman, and that made me, I think I was a senior, yeah, and he got to go to the early part of the dances, from 7 until 9:30, and then I got the 9:30 to 11 o'clock, and non, but John, you got to go now so Chris can come up here, that, and then of course there was cheerleading. I didn't go out my freshman year, but I did my sophomore year, and Miss Neuser didn't realize that I wasn't one of the Pewaukee people, that I didn't go to grade school, there, and she made a comment to me that she just hates it when these Catholic kids come in and want to be on her squad, and I'm going, funny, I'm your captain, and I came from. She blushed on that one. But high school, I had a good time, particularly when I was a junior. I was a hall monitor, and I was a monitor between the boys and the girls' bathrooms. I would just harass the upperclassmen just mercifully, and one of the times they paid back, and they picked me up my chair and all and put me in the boys' bathroom. So, and I also was shame on me, but like I said, I was a hall monitor, and some of the times I worked in the office, and I had to go around and collect all of the attendance things from the different classrooms. And some of the guys would be up in the where you do the tapings for the games in this room up there. But they would come to me and ask me to go and find a way of getting them off the putting them on the attendance slip or making sure they were on there, and I managed to do it a couple times in my yearbook. A few of the guys would thank me for and said Uncle Harry, who was the principal, isn't too bright. So I always kind of pushed the boundaries.
That's funny.
Little kids are known to do that.
Yeah. So you were one of those kids.
Yeah.
I love it. That starts to make some sense. Kind of starting to switch gears. How did you meet Paul? What did you remember about that first meeting? And what was your impression?
Sharon and I worked together at Crosby Square. She was the secretary to the vice principal, and she sat kitty corner, and I was on a computer machine that actually was a data machine, and we had these old cards. Anyways, so she was going out with Tom, and Tom and Paul, they're cousins, of course, they were working together. Tom was in the seminary, but for his job part, they were both working at Wisco. So they invited both Paul and I over to Sharon's apartment. If I remember correctly, it was like August 8th or so. The Packers and the Bears always had a preseason game together. And the thing I realized, one, he was very good looking, and two, I could tease the heck out of him. I mean, I could just rattle him very easy, the way I talk fast and being cutty and everything. And I said something, and I don't remember what pulled it off, but we had a pillow fight. And in the process of pillow fight, I poked him in the eye, and he got a black eye.
Huh.
That, and from then we like I said, there was a physical attraction, and we started dating. I think, like the second or third date, we were supposed to go out to my folks. I don't know what holiday it was or whatever, and I was living in the Young American Apartments on Highway 100. And Paul was supposed to meet me there, and from there we would go out to my folks. And that, it must have been the second date, because he was supposed to be there at a certain time, and he was living out in Wales with Jackie and Rowan at that time. And I waited like 20 minutes, and he wasn't there. And I had enough. So I left, and I got out to the highway, and I said, maybe I should go through one more time in case he came through the other way. And he was coming down, but otherwise, that would have been it. I wouldn't have gone out with him again. That you don't stand me up like that. So that's what I remember about the beginning.
So you came back to see if he had come a different direction,
Yeah.
and he was there, or he was coming.
He was coming down the thing. I went out this way, and I wound up coming around, coming back, and he was coming down this way. Yeah. So he was driving right. He had the green machine, that van. That. In fact, you used to ride in a basket because the motor mount was right in between the seats. You know, put you to sleep like nothing. And it was warm because it had no heat in the thing. But it was the only warm place. So, yeah, that's how we met.
Why is your song your song?
Because Dad cannot dance. His idea of dancing is to move one side by side, by side, by side. And we used to go to First Place West. It was a bar off of Clybourne, I think it was. And it was the only song that they played. Chicago was a real big band back then. And it was the only song that they played, and I said, come on, you're going to dance with it to this, you know? So that became our song, because it was the only thing Dad could dance to. And I don't know if it was the Wales thing back then they found on dancing, that, you know, but you still can't dance. It's still, just shuffle your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And me, of course, I like to dance.
What two things? Give me two things about Dad that just makes you laugh or brings you joy.
Well, first of all, that you asked that question. Dad is totally serious all the time, you know, just that. I guess what makes me laugh is when he actually catches one of my sarcasms and laughs at it. I got him to laugh. That's a big thing, you know. So, yeah, that would be it.
Anything that gives you joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
That I think his faithfulness. That was one of the things that attracted me to it, was his knowledge of the Bible. I mean, being brought up Catholic, and the inconsistencies of the Catholic Church and the whole thing turned me off. But I think his faithfulness, and I know that he makes sure that I'm financially taken care of, you know, that if anything should happen to him, I'll be okay. And that way he puts me first. and anything else, the cars come first. It's, if you can rub two coins together, he's looking for a car. Car, boat. He was looking at campers. I mean, if he can find a way to spend money, he'll do it.
Well, that takes care of the what's one thing that drives you a little crazy. Yeah, I was going to guess cars. You said it quite well. Last question from me, and then I'll give you a, is there anything else as you're thinking about coming up to the wedding and stuff? But what are two of the greatest blessings that God gives you and has given you in Dad and Paul?
Oh, you kids, that for sure. That I think with everything that we've gone through with Dad's cancer, is to know that God truly is active in our lives. When you look at any step of the way through the cancer, Dad could have been gone. But that the Lord was answering prayers, that our problems, when He says, I know that you have problems and I am here for you, I think that was just, I can remember sending out reports to everybody when he was in the hospital having the first stem cell and the second, and the first one didn't work. That, back then he was in the hospital for 30 days, 60 days at a crack. And I couldn't, all I could do was see him through a glass door. And you forget about those things. But now for me, they're real, and God's faithfulness to us is, every day, with what Dad goes through, and his problems just keep on changing all the time. But he's 76 years old. Every day with him is a blessing now. You don't take it for granted.
That's awesome. When I'm going to be bringing you guys back together, and then we'll really hit the wedding date and some of the other big questions. Is there anything else as you think about from your childhood, meeting Dad, engagement, that from your perspective that we didn't cover in that?
For the first, I don't know how many years, I felt very out of place in the Wells and in the Wisconsin Synod. That people would always ask me, which Westendorf I was, and I'm going, I don't know. I said I was Catholic. I married into the family. That I really felt alone. And then when we first married, and for the longest time, Dad, he drank rather regularly, a lot to me, and he was always off, either in the dark somewhere, having a drink, thinking about whatever, or listening to the classical music, but he did not interact with me. Getting him to participate with you kids, it wasn't until you had basketball and he could coach that I felt like I was a parent by myself. And I resented that. And, one of the things that we went to marriage counseling with Ralph, and he said that we were going to have a struggle. That his dad died when he was 9, I think, but really wasn't there since he was 3. And I came from a volatile, dysfunctional family. And so, when he would tick me off, I kept that in my, you got to remember Chrissy didn't have this. You got to remember Chrissy doesn't have that. And I would talk to his mom, you know, and he was, you know, here he had just Aunt Marie and mom and I forgot the other one, sister, and then there's Dorton, you know, just that. So I tried to always, you know, make an excuse or whatever for his behavior. That, but you know, then when I had something that really was important to me, he just wouldn't get it. Just didn't get it, and that would frustrate the heck out of me. I remember writing it all down, you know, thinking, okay, maybe if he read it, it would communicate better. Furrow. So there's some really frustrating years for me.
How'd you get through it?
Divorce is not an option. Faithfulness to God. You made a vow.
Mm-hmm.
And divorce is not an option. You can't go that way.
Did you see growth?
Huh?
Did you see growth over time?
I think the growth well, the cancer made him listen to me more, you know, because he was extremely vulnerable and he needs me for other things, you know. He can't just go and do, you know. He can't, you know, with the peeling skin, and I had, you know, I was his nurse, and from there came more respect, came more love, came more affectionate. But like I said, we always had physical attraction. That was never a problem. That, what was the question? I think my biggest thankfulness is becoming Lutheran and the hymns. I learned more about Lutheran, you know, through the hymns, about faith and everything through the hymns, and then eventually getting into the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But it was through the hymns that gave me, you know, a better feeling. I remember we were living on 68th Street, the first house. That, and I was upset that Paul knew all these scriptural passages, and he was always throwing them at me left and right, you know, and it was like, you know, flaunting to me. That. So he got me a Phillips translation of the New Testament, and I'm reading Paul, and I'm going, this is one chauvinistic. I was not happy with, you know, my Catholicism said, So I fought a lot of it, you know, for quite a while, but the hymns brought me around that. And Jackie and Rowan were a big part of our lives. That, yeah.
Very few memories from either the old parsonage or the new parsonage. Reconstructed the new parsonage in my brain. Was they didn't excavate the whole basement area, so only half of it was excavated, and had a real basement under it, and couple bedrooms downstairs and one up, bedroom and a bathroom upstairs. When Ralph and Rowan were home, they'd be in that upper bedroom, and Mom and I would sleep downstairs. Don't remember much about when we got moved out of the new parsonage. I do remember there was a motel along Euclid Avenue, cabins thing back in the 50s, so quite a bit different than anything you'd see today. But we stayed there for a while, and I don't know for weeks or what it was. I do remember the trip to for Christmas. So I'm guessing it must have been under a year because I only remember one Christmas. We drove through a snowstorm to go to Pontiac, Michigan to spend Christmas with George and Dort, my stepsister and her husband. And it was a bright and cheerful house, and we were welcomed warmly when we got there. Parsonage, the house on 1708 is where I spent most of my time, most of my years in Michigan. Yeah, I think probably the most interesting thing about it was so there was no heat upstairs except for the bathroom, and the bathroom was upstairs. So if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you went upstairs, but conversely, if it was the dead of winter and you were sleeping upstairs, as I usually did, it was a race from under these magnificently warm quilts to get to the bathroom before you froze. Didn't realize it at the time, but there's no insulation in the place. And we would get these huge icicles, I mean like 10, 12 feet long icicles off of the roof at where the bathroom was. So the heat from the bathroom would melt the snow on the roof and create these monster icicles. Grade school was grade school, St. John's. I guess academics never really was my thing for a variety of reasons, but I got by in grade school. Bay City itself was, for the day, a medium-sized town, I would say. I never thought of it as a small town. Streets didn't get plowed. Main streets would get plowed in the winter, but 3 or 4 days after a snowfall, you're still driving through 6, 8 inches of snow to get into the driveway. So just a much different world than what we have today. My brother Rowland had motorcycles, and I think that's probably what lit the fire in me. Not that I had motorcycles when I was that age, but he did. He had a Harley 45, a Harley 74, and then he had an Indian. And I have no idea where he got these bikes, but. And then the story of the 49 Ford was the one thing that transitioned with me from the parsonage to 1708 and was our car for several years there. Neglected to mention my father was, let's say, institutionalized. He had diabetes that was undiagnosed and got very bad, and they just had to manage that, and he wasn't somebody who could stay at home anymore. So when I was 7, I believe, he went into the sanitarium now. Is that what they call it? Sanitarium. And when he was 11, when I was 11, he died. So that 49 Ford was the one constant in all of the other change that took place in those years. And very few exceptions. We have rode around Fords ever since. As I thought about it, they used to have an amusement park up by State Park somewhere near Bay City. And we'd go there maybe once a year. But dodgem cars on a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round, I don't know if they had anything else. So that was a destination.
Was that the one we went to?
No, and then there was, there's the one that we took you to, a train ride and a boat ride and an amusement room. It was again near State Park, so they attracted the visitors to State Park. If I said Tony's Amusement Park, I'd be guessing, but yes, so that was there when I was there, and it was something we usually did when you were young and we went to Grandma's. Far away Grandma's. Had a fun year, sophomore year, playing football at high school. It's a whole conversation about, showing an interest in kids, and some of the basketball coaching I did had its essence in that. You wanted to work with kids who may not have had that opportunity, to have an adult show some interest in them. And Martin Taple was the man. So I had a nice sophomore year, and the rest of it was pretty forgettable. Don't dwell on high school very much. And then college was a disaster, and brought me into the secular world and working for a living.
Yeah, I want to carry that. For you it was the attempted college. It was the attempted college, so you'd done a semester at Northwestern, and you did some additional schooling. Did you
I did. When I came back from the military, they paid for a 2-year degree at Delta College at the time, and 2-year institution. So my claim to fame is a 2-year degree in business administration.
Yeah. But you wound up, as a career, being an engineer. What was the early job process for you? Because I'm curious about Wisconsin Lutheran High School, because that comes up. And so, what was some of that job start for you?
I think that I was always interested in how things work. And I think my mother did move some mountains and got me to work with Myers Sunoco. Ed Myers was a member of the congregation, and I don't know what she did to get me some of those jobs, but I think she got me that one. But it worked well. Ed Myers was, Martin Taple in high school. Ed Myers in those young years, secular years I would call them, when I was working for a living and learned to drink beer and drive faster than I should have, and all the other things. But do you remember Ed Myers?
I don't. I remember the name.
We would stop there when we went to visit Grandma. And, yep, we always stop there and visit him. So he was a mentor, and that got me into the mechanical and the cars, which that you did see. I worked in a hardware warehouse, in a steel warehouse, Defoe Shipbuilding. So I worked on a destroyer escort. What else? But it was all hands-on. I suppose most of the jobs in those days were. And I worked for Bay City Chevrolet, so saw the whole union.
You worked for Bay City
Yeah,
Chevrolet.
I think my mother moved to mountains to get me that job too.
Okay.
But if you can imagine a union job in those days, the pay was great. I didn't work there that long, but yeah, I didn't tell a furnace story. For the first time ever in my mother's house on 1708, she didn't have to shovel coal because I put a gas furnace in it. Had them put a gas furnace in it, and I could afford that. And I bought a new motorcycle. Yeah, motorcycles were a thing by then. I had a group of friends who rode motorcycles. And we would go trail riding probably more Saturdays than not. Been tired and dirty, come home, wash up, and go out and have some beers. Yeah, it's all part of the motorcycle piece of it.
Okay. Where does the Wisconsin Lutheran High School thing fit into all of this?
Your honorary Uncle Tom was working there. Believe he was at the SEM at the time. And I was unemployed and living in Michigan. And he said, yeah, come on down, we'll get you, you can get a job at Wisco. That's George Snyder, another of my mentors. I don't know, you should remember George. So started working there, and besides pushing a room and a single disc floor machine, I also got into the plumbing and electrical piece of it, even though I knew nothing about it. And so that mechanical piece of it was always there. But I got into Wisco because of Tom, cousin Tom. And found out later that they didn't really approve my job there. George just kind of hired me, and I can't remember the principal's name, Krause, I think, at the time. But it actually worked out to their benefit because George got sick or had to go in for he was laid up for a week, 2 weeks. They would have had nobody to turn the boiler on and all the stuff you do in a building. And really, Wisco is what sent me down the facilities path. A lot of it in those days was cleaning and taking care of floors and things like that. But some of it got to be mechanical. That was the beginning of that.
Okay. Speaking of beginnings, kind of
now switch to you and Mom. How did you meet Mom? What do you remember about that first meeting, and what was your first impressions of Chris?
Yeah, so meeting part of it was fairly straightforward. Sharon worked with Chris, and I imagine she told you the shoe place. I can't remember the name of it right offhand. So they introduced the two of us at their place. If I remember correctly, we got in a pillow fight. She gave me, yeah, she messed with a pillow and hit me with a fist. So your mother left quite an impression. She was not like any of the other girls I'd ever met. Let's just say it moved very quickly. And was it 6 months later we were married? I don't remember. Not more than a year. Enough said.
What was your first impression of Chris? What did you think of her?
I think at that point in time I was just looking for a permanent female companion, and she seemed like she might be willing to do that. So, like I said, it was a whirlwind romance, and it was a romance. But it went very quickly. We had gone out, I believe, some bar downtown, and we danced that song. And Color My World. And it just stuck.
Good.
Back when I could sing, I would sing it to her. And yeah.
Yeah, because you sang in choir, in choruses, didn't you?
I sang choir in high school, and church choirs. As you're well aware, the Westendorf Trio. Yeah, I had a decent bass voice back in the day, not a solo voice, but a choral voice. That one I had to work on because, there are probably 20 things when I look at Quincy, my dog, and it just makes me laugh. It's not that kind of thing. But every once in a while, your mother will just absolutely nail some comment. Most of our joking around is just banter. Not particularly funny if you're not looking for something to laugh at. But every once in a while, she just nail a comment and just floor me because it just so fits the situation. And anything else I might mention would just get me in trouble, so. At this stage of life, you can look back at the whole, and you're thankful for somebody who has stuck with you. At times you were wrong, and even at times when they were wrong, and never let it get to the point where it destroyed what the most important thing you can build in this life. I forgot what was the question.
What about Mom gives you joy? Just a satisfaction, deep satisfaction.
Okay, I don't know if you can put this on anybody's tape, but there is this magnificent beauty to the relationship that God created between men and women. And I think you're just too busy to appreciate that when you're younger. And because you don't appreciate it, it leads to a lot of conflict. But when you appreciate it, it's just, to me, it's inexpressible. There aren't words that convey the fulfillment. And yeah, I give God credit for creating this relationship that we can have in this world between men and women. Physical, emotional, financial, family. That's what gives me joy when I think about it.
That's good. You get to say this. What's one thing that drives you just a little crazy about Chris?
Petty things. She rarely closes a door. I will walk into the kitchen, 2 turntables, turn them to the right spot and they look like part of the cabinetry. Otherwise, they just look like food in pots and pans. Almost invariably, one of them will be open. Occasionally, both of them. I can remember talking to a good friend, Nelson Correa, whom you met. I said, I can't walk past this closet door with it being closed. I can't imagine you would have a need to open it that many times in the course of the day. But it is almost always open. And then even though a door is closed, you better push on it and make sure it's latched. Because, and of course I'm guilty of that too. But.
Good. What are, and I'm sure that there are many, but just the things that come to mind, but what are 2 of the greatest blessings that God has given you in Chris?
Sex. Got us through a lot of fights. She's been remarkable through the cancer episode. Rarely complaining, even though it's got a weigh on her. And just taking care of everything. And there were days.
I remember because it was a picture. But what do you remember about your wedding day? No, don't come by me. You got to go over by them. And it's okay if Quincy's up and down.
What? You go.
Okay. Let me go. Well, I remember the kiss. That was a picture. And
At the altar.
no,
No,
I think
kiss.
that was at the reception.
Oh, at the reception. Okay.
I think. We'll have to look at the picture.
I don't know what the picture is.
I remember your dad opening the bar. So free drinks for everybody.
Yeah, because we were just doing beer and soda.
Remember, you should talk about Cindy and, was it John Bergen?
Yeah. That I remember my dad's car. That
I had a
was
Cadillac, big green one I think he had at that time.
kind of bluish green.
Yeah.
Bluish green Cadillac. That's what we used for our car. That
The
yeah,
wedding.
yeah. I remember it being filled with balloons. That and remember going up to after the reception, going up to my folks' house to go and change clothes. Got out of the car and it stunk to high heaven. Big thing back then was to put Limburger cheese on the manifold. That and it just reeked. That so the first hotel we stayed, motel, was on Blue Mountain Road, and we wound up parking it down, way down. There weren't any cars around. We just didn't want to buy us. Somebody's going to knock on our door and tell us to get out, you know. That I remember that it was like 90 degrees, and we had the reception at the Pewaukee Golf Club. No air conditioning. That they got windows all the way around, but there was no air moving. That at all. Mosquitoes were really, really bad. That and Dan Westendorf was supposed to be taking our pictures for us. That we
He
didn't
took
get
pictures.
yeah, he was a picture taker, and we didn't get very many pictures of the wedding.
I think that's what John did, John Bergen. I don't think Dan did the pictures for
No,
us.
I thought Dan did.
We'll never know.
Yep. See, what else do I remember about the day? I remember Jackie's and Rollins' kids, Jenny and Kent, dancing. You know, Marta was real, real little. But there's a picture of Jenny somewhere. That's about all I remember of that day.
You had multiple colors on the dresses. What was the?
It was a rainbow wedding. That
Back when
That-
rainbow didn't mean something negative.
that Nani, who was my matron of honor, she had picked a very deep rose color. So poor Tom, his shirt had to be that color, and the guys had ruffles shirts, I think.
I don't remember.
That so and then John and Kathy, they had the blue. That Mary Prahovnik and Roland had a green. That and Cindy and Mike Hansen,
Mike Hansen.
they were a lavender color, and the girls had an open weaved basket, and I don't know what kind of flowers were in there, but they had flowers. That's what I remember.
The people who stood up, who were they? How were they? You know, how did they come to be the wedding party?
Well, of course I picked mine, which Nani and my sister and Cindy, and Mary Prahovnik was a college friend, you know. And then for him, you had
Well, John was one of them, obviously,
Tom
Mom's brother.
Curtis was there.
and Tom. And Mike Hansen filled in for Rip Teplin, who bailed on us.
I was
Bless
not a
his
happy
heart.
camper.
Uncle Tom was a good friend with him, and he's a good guy. It's one of the crew at Wisco. So,
So how did you?
Rowan.
How did you know Mike Hansen? How did you know Mike Hansen?
From Wisco, from doing floors and stuff.
Yeah, because he was maintenance at Wisco for when we first got married.
Okay. What do you remember? Do you remember anything about the Bible passage, the sermon, who did the sermon, who married you, stuff like that?
Well, we got married at just
Peace?
sort of no, in Pewaukee.
In Pewaukee.
That which Ralph worked out, and the pastor there did the service part of things, and then Ralph did. Did he do the sermon, or did I know he married
I don't
us?
remember specifically. I would think that he had, but he was also the one who married us.
Right. He signed the wedding thing. Marriage certificate.
Do you remember the passage? Did you?
No.
Did you pick that out, or did
No,
at that time did they just do that?
They did that.
We didn't know what we were doing.
We would have gotten married earlier because as he realized I was pregnant, but Kathy set the date. That because she and Dick were both teachers, but they were in different tracks because they went to school all year round, and they only had 1 week in which their tracks both left them with a week open. And August 4th was a Saturday. My birthday's the next day. She said, I hate to do this to you, Chris, but that's the only time we're free. So she set the date.
It was basically a trip around the UP, so obviously wedding night we spent in Milwaukee. Headed north, went to Mackinac Island, came back down, and I'm assuming we stopped at the fort on the south side of the Mackinac Bridge. And I can't tell you what city we stayed in that night, but what I remember about that was we went to the major hotel in the city back in the day when you didn't do reservations necessarily to get a room. And he said, nope, we're full. But there's this place, not far from there. And it was a motel, but we couldn't have a nicer room. Somewhere, if you see a picture of Mom sitting in the middle of a king-size bed with pillows around her, that would be that room. It was gorgeous. Then we came to Bay City, and faraway grandma held a second reception for us with all the Michigan people. And that was awesome.
Yeah, I felt really in no man's land because I only knew Paul and Grandma, And
We had a lot. She turned on a lot of people.
yep.
It was a big to-do.
Yeah. My first apartment was on Sherman Boulevard.
Okay.
That Sherman Boulevard and Hampton Avenue, I think it was.
hmm
I did the cheese thing with a car. That the Cadillac was filled with balloons and I couldn't get into it. But the wedding day itself,
Yeah.
nobody got sick, nobody passed out.
Nobody wrecked the car.
Fainted
Pretty good wedding.
Going down the aisle. That Paul, when you look at Paul in all the wedding pictures, he looks like Napoleon. He always has his hand in his shirt like that, And my dad, you can tell he's chewing his gum where he's got his mouth. And the dress that my mom wore, she made that. It was multicolored. She had all the colors of the wedding party in it. She made that.
Okay. It was funny that I asked one of the blessings that you have received, and you just very eloquently and then very directly. Just yeah, physical attraction's a good thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But any
That and never go to bed angry at each other. So physical attraction, solve that.
See, I don't have specific memories, so I couldn't nail that down, but in a general sense, once you figure out you're going to stay together, make it work.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is it takes two people doing that, not just one, and Mom would always come down and I would always come down and we'd cool off and work it out and move on. Hopefully learn from it. The learning part, I think, took a long time. But
And once you make your mind up that divorce is not an option, and for me, when I would look at it and go, Chris, how on earth would you support yourself with 3 kids? You know, you don't have any major degree or anything, and you're not gonna. And I go, you can't. So you got to go and make some changes.
I think family culture, I think we're fortunate, all of us, to be Westendorfs, that we're blessed to have Wells as the ministry piece of what we're doing, because they don't compromise. I don't have to, what good is the Bible if you say, this is my standard for life? And you say, except for this part and this part and this part. But if you can hold it up and say, yep, Bible still says that's wrong, Bible says I should do that. So the culture, both in our family, and I like to believe in our larger family now, that it is a larger family, the culture the Christian culture that we grew up in, I couldn't recall a lot of the little things that you run into during the course of the day where somebody says something and it's positive and useful, or just friendly. So, yeah, not specific instances, but just generally that.
Well,
To me, divorce would have been a huge failure, honestly. That's the one failure that I think would have crushed me. So when you're both set to work it out, get on the theme of selfishness, but so much conflict is simply based in selfishness. And if you can both get past the selfishness, you can work out the conflict.
I think you had given us that book or a questionnaire about communication and one thing about Paul, and he has kind of learned that I picked up on, is he needs praise. He needs to be thanked for doing stuff, and he needs praise, and that was one of the things that I would always do, is thank him for going to work every day, And in between jobs or whatever, he always found a way of getting another job. We didn't have a lot of money or anything, but and I stayed at home, which was my choice, because I felt that a lot of my parents' arguments, Mom didn't give Dad very much respect, and 2, she made a lot of money, and I found, even when we were first married, that he would get a raise, and it'd just be the raise time, and I'd wind up getting a raise that was a nickel more. Yeah.
Or a dollar more or whatever.
And it bothered him, that I was making more money than him. And just the nature of the type of position that he had, my job was going to be more money, so we chose not to, not to work, except for the Burger King thing was to pay for Wisco. Yeah.
And I think everybody was in school by then.
Yeah. Well, having a family and everything, I realized I overreact to everything. My first thought is, oh, crap. Like downstairs, this is not good. And then I have to talk myself into figuring out how to fix it.
We talked a little bit about selfishness. As I look at it, that gradual process of trying to appreciate my wife, a woman who is, I don't want to say the polar opposite, but just that natural conflict, blessing, fireworks that come from male, female, and trying to learn how to meet her needs and communicate with her, listen to her. Very slow process for me. But yeah, we are made to fulfill or complete each other. And selfishness sure gets in the way of that.
I think once you get through the first 25, then you've got a history to build on and to learn from. And so then adjustments are made then, And then too, for us in particular, and his health issues, we were definitely live on our knees at the foot of the cross as a result of having to live literally day by day and be thankful day by day, things that most people just get, oh, it's a new day, okay, let's go. Got this and this to do. Well, we tend to look at it a little different now. The way we're supposed to.
I don't think it's difficult. The only thing that gets in the way of it just not appreciating the other person fully. And, for us it was up and down. Really good times and probably, I don't want to say really bad times, but times when we could have been doing a lot better. As Winston Churchill said, never give up, never give up, never give up. So in that respect, it's just not giving up. The degree to which you do grow together, and you get rid of those barriers that cause conflict, and it gets easier and easier.
I hold a grudge. And I also feel kind of like an elephant. when you've crossed me, I don't forget those things. And I tend to, in the heat of an argument, bring up the different ways you've hurt me. But through time and realizing that the tongue was very sharp on him and hurt, even though he would argue, he would take anything I said and twist it and give it back to me again. But eventually it's like, you better choose your battles, you know, instead of having to be over any little thing or everything. It better be well worth the battle, you know. So consequently, it's not worth the battle.
What was the question?
How hard is it to forgive for 50 years?
Yeah, forgiveness is always hard. But it pretty much encapsulates it. Once you're committed to each other, it's not much point in making each other miserable. It just isn't. And most of the time, the common ground is the best way to go. Be nice if you could get there without any conflict, but the common ground comes about and you move forward, or onward, if not forward.
Who are some of the people who helped get you here, or some of the things that helped you get here to 50 years?
No, I think relationally, we said Val and Jackie were really important to us when we were first married.
And Paul's mom,
Oh.
that, you know, she accepted me, and she just had such a quiet manner about doing things, you know, and she had her problems with Dort in particular.
Rowan.
No, with Dort.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, that would have been
yeah, with the doll thing.
in step
Yeah.
relationship.
But, so, yeah, and like you said, Jackie and Rowan.
Just to fill that out, so Karen is Dorothy's daughter, and she holds Grandma in high respect. And she's one of the ones that keeps linked with the Westendorf side of the family. And I just think you see how influential Grandma was at the core level at which people actually function. Chris definitely needed to know that she was welcome.
That's
and that Grandma never would.
That's why I send cards to everybody all the time, because Grandma, at her funeral, one of the guys came up and said, you know, I forgot how he was related, but she never missed my birthday. I always got a card. And, you know, Grandma at the month would go through, she'd get all her cards, and on her desk she had in the corner what date to mail them. You know, where the stamp would go. She'd have them all signed and addressed and that, you know, but this, so it was something I do in memory of Grandma. I send the thank you notes to everybody, because one thing Grandma did several times, she made me out a list of all the aunts and everybody's birthday and that. And
I wasn't getting it done. She sent me stamps one year. so, so now you know, and I do appreciate saying things. It's just real easy. Sitting down and having to have to write a thank you note means that you have to sit and think about it. And that's why I think kids ought to send thank you notes.
You know, Tom and Sharon would be obvious. But through the St. James years, we had a good relationship with Lundlings.
Yep.
We had a good relationship with Hoshes and the Galkis, and that was
It was a
the
good
core
part of
group
our
of
lives.
people.
Yeah.
We didn't party, we didn't go out, but we worked on basketball together, Kristen and
Girl Pioneers. And softball.
did the softball and the concessions, made that stuff work. It was a lot of stuff at St. James that happened because of that relationship.
And for me, Nani, you know, Nani's always been there, you know. That and Joyce Casey, she was a big part of my life.
You're wearing purple.
Yeah. Denise, of course. Absolutely, Denise. Yeah.
After 50 years of marriage, what are you grateful for?
50 years.
You know, family. Family. For parents that went before us, the kids and the grandkids. Try to communicate that, how, okay, materialism works pretty well in your 20s and 30s, maybe your 40s. By the time you get in your 50s, it's not all that great. There are only so many new cars or bigger houses. But if you got family, you've got something to work for, you've got something to pray for, you get encouragement, you are prayed for by.
And you look for opportunities to get together because everybody's life has gone so many different ways that it's really special.
Yep. So that's
Yeah,
that's what motivates me.
That you watch Blue Bloods and you wish that you could do the family dinner every Sunday, you know? I'm sitting there, gee, Chris, could you handle? There's nobody there really preparing the meals.
Well, Grandpa prepares the meals and he's got nothing else to do.
Yeah, but you know, that would be ideal, you know, that you could do something like that.
We're a little more diverse than Blue Bloods is.
Yeah.
Be married today.
For me, it's real simple. Obviously, God's word is, if you don't have that, you know, they talked about every wind and wave of doctrine moving around. Well, the secular world is really pretty good at making sound arguments. And by what standard do you judge whether this argument or that argument is better? And if you don't have that foundational document in God's Word, then you will be moved by those arguments. And as to why you should trust God's Word is because at the end of the day, it works. At the end of the day, we're talking about a 50-year marriage. We're talking about a family relationship on no perfection anywhere, but we're talking about a family relationship that on a large scale works. where a lot of people don't have that. They don't have it, you know, nuclear family, larger group family. If you use God's standards for making your judgments about what's right and wrong, I'm not saying you always do it, but at least you'll know why you failed. I just become more and more convinced of it as I see what's happening in the world today. It can't work, and people don't get it. You can't change the language. You can't change gender. You can't speak things into existence. And government is the driving force. What's going to happen? Eventually, government's got to take over and shut down all dissent. So God's way works. Our Constitution was written for a moral and a religious people. Our country works because of that. And the less moral and less religious become, the more dangerous it becomes that we're going to be taken over because we won't be able to stand.
One of my advices is that whomever your child marries, to make sure that you build up that person that they married, make sure that that person is confident and accepted into the family, that they feel nothing but warmth. You show as much acceptance and love and part of the family to whomever they marry, that they definitely, when they walk through the door, they're home.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we both view that as part of our job, is to help our kids' relationships succeed and to be welcoming and loving.
Well, the only thing is I think we said it in the invitation that this 50th celebration is a thank you to the people that have been very important in our lives, that family and friends, and it's, you know, a thank you.
Sounds good to me.
Best way we could spend our money, you know, take a trip or something, but to have an opportunity to say thank you to these people.
By the way, has anybody sent a response?
It's well, Nan has and Joanne, Mary, yeah, but the, what do you call it, RSVP is July 21st.
Okay, so nothing from Langlings, nothing from Hoshes, nothing from...
Nope.
It may be the family.
Yeah.
And a few friends from the neighborhood.
Yep.
We'll reach out.
I'm hoping Nelson and Karen can come.
I didn't send to Bugalkis.
We didn't send to Bigalkis because, you know, we knew Jerry was in really rough shape.
Yeah, Jerry's, he can't leave his apartment, you know, and Kathy's not in that great shape either, so. Yeah.
Not that we've seen him in
No, but
10 years.
yeah, I think Becky learned from Hoshes, because Hoshes go to the same church as her.
Okay.
Tom and Sharon might come.
Oh, they are coming.
They are coming.
They are coming. So we will have the head table. It'll be Paul and I, and Tom and Sharon, and Nan and Raj at the head table.
Good.
That. And I intend to go and get corsages for the women, and little boutonnieres for the guys. Yeah.
I gotta have anything to put it on.
Huh? You'll have a shirt.
T-shirts and shorts.
You won't be a T-shirt. But the lady from Crown of Life, she runs a florist shop over there by the Piggly Wiggly on 175.
Okay.
Huh? And you get a discount, and we also should be make sure that I get flowers on the altar at Crown of Life.
Okay.
We got the money. We can do it.
There you go.
I figure if he can look at a $43,000 truck
Or car.
or
whichever.
car, I can spend this money with no guilty conscience.
There you go.